In this video, I've got 3 reasons why I am still extremely bullish on Rolls-Royce. This week, the stock reached an 18-month high and I am now 40% up on my holding from when I first purchased it back in April. Now, 40% returns in 5 months, in reality, in 2021 is pretty spectacular returns actually. Anyone that tells you that that's not an acceptable return is someone to be avoided at all costs. Now, return viewers of this channel will know exactly how I feel about Rolls-Royce, but for those of you that are new, here's a clue.
If I scared them now.
Don't forget, however, I am just an idiot on the internet and you must do your own research. Now, there has been news over the last week in the market that's given me real hope for even further growth for this business. So let's get to it. So in at number 1, in the last week, a contract has been signed with the US Air Force to supply F-130 engines. So that's these bad boys. So these will supply the US Air Force for their B-52 bombers for the next 30 years. Now, in any industry, that's an extremely long contract to have. And so that does 2 things in my mind. First off, it generates a hell of a load of cash, especially in a business that has had a bit of a debt problem over the last 18 months. So this is going to really help that, and this is going to generate around $2.6 billion worth of revenue. And secondly, but most importantly for me actually, is it showcases the confidence that the industry has in Rolls-Royce. It shows confidence that Rolls-Royce are going to be delivering over the next, not months, not years, but decades. On top of that, it further cements its relationship as one of the biggest spenders in global defense, and that being the US. Right, then number 2, and this is hot off the press as well, and that is the sale as of yesterday being the 27th of September, of ITP Aero. So not only have they got guaranteed cash coming in now over the next few decades for the supply of these F-130s into the US Air Force, going to generate a lot of revenue and cement that relationship even further, they've also generated a further $1.7 billion by selling ITP Aero. So ITP Aero is basically a Spanish company that manufactures turbines, so a component that goes into the building of the engine. So why is this relevant then? So last year, Rolls-Royce promised its investors that it would generate around $2 billion to try and fix the balance sheet. This piece of business alone has pretty much all but done that. So it streamlines the business, takes some complexity out in terms of the management of ITP Aero. Rolls-Royce no longer have to worry about that. It generates a significant amount of revenue in terms of 1.7 billion for the sale of the business. And it also means that they guarantee continuity of supply because they've put an arrangement in place where they're going to continue to supply turbines from ITP Aero. So all round, an absolutely fantastic piece of business. So much so that this news alone increased the share price yesterday by 10%. Right then, in at number 3, and this one is one that I've mentioned before, but there is new news around this one, and it's one that I'm really excited about, and I'll get to why in a sec, and that is around their further development into the electric plane. They are on the brink of breaking the airspeed record with an aeroplane called the Spirit of Innovation. So it's an all-electric aeroplane. They're nearly there. They're about to break the 200 mile per hour airspeed record, and that for me is really exciting. Like I said, I mentioned this before and I had a few people comment about it. How will this translate into a viable business in the future? How will the tech be good enough going forward for long distance flight? Batteries won't be good enough. It's going to weigh too much, etc, etc, etc. You know, you get all of these sort of things, and often people can have a negative outlook on things if they don't really consider the bigger picture. Now, you have to think a little bit deeper with this one, and I'm reminded of a passage in a book that I'm reading at the moment by Morgan Housel, The Psychology of Money. In his book, he talks about only 2 years before the Wright brothers took off in the first ever motor-operated airplane, it was proven that it was going to be impossible to do. So much so, and to the extent that even after it happened, people still didn't even really believe it. It took more than 4 years for the media to get hold of it, to run articles on it, to take photos of it, to take video of it, to prove to everyone on the world that this has actually happened, for people to actually accept it. Even then, people said it doesn't have a real world application, you won't be able to fly people in it won't be able to go far enough, I don't trust it, etc, etc. Sound familiar? Obviously that piece of work went on to revolutionize the 20th century, and probably with the internet as the biggest invention of the last 100 years. So for me, it's quite simple. The fact that Rolls-Royce are leading in this area at a time, literally in the UK, where people are panic buying fuel. So much so, it has caused a 1600% increase in Google search volume for electric cars. You do the maths, or math, as my American friends might say. As I mentioned before with this holding, I was looking at having 100% return inside 12 months, but actually the reality of the business has changed somewhat. I'm almost halfway to that already inside 5 months, and given the change of the facts around this business, I've changed my strategy, and I am now starting to think I'm going to be holding this a little bit longer. I'm going to continue to do videos on this subject. If you've got any interest, please do consider subscribing. Any comments on anything I've said today, please drop them below. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.